Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, Daniel, 34 male, for 5 years. Daniel and I met through mutual friends, and we fell for each other hard. He was thoughtful, supportive, and for the longest time, I thought he was my soulmate. My in-laws are incredibly generous people who welcomed me into their family wholeheartedly. From day one, they treated me like their own daughter. I've always felt blessed to have found not only a great husband, but also a supportive, caring family. Earlier this year, Daniel and I found out we were expecting our first child. We were thrilled. Starting a family had always been something we talked about, and now it was finally happening. My in-laws were beyond excited too. They'd wanted a grandchild for years. They even hinted at changing their will to ensure our baby would be well taken care of. This gesture meant a lot to me, as it showed just how much they valued me and our future child. Not to mention that they are extremely wealthy. However, things started to feel strange a few months into my pregnancy. My younger sister, Hannah, 28 female, began acting a little bit off. Hannah and I have always been close. Growing up, we were inseparable. We supported each other through everything, from family issues to personal struggles, and there was nothing we wouldn't share. So when she started acting distant, avoiding family gatherings, and barely speaking to me, I was concerned. I'd invite her over, but she'd make excuses to avoid coming. And when she did show up, she seemed uncomfortable around me, barely able to make eye contact. I started wondering if she was dealing with some personal issues, maybe feeling left out or envious because I was starting a family. Then one day, Hannah dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. She casually announced it during a family dinner, and everyone was stunned. My parents and I congratulated her, of course, though I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. Hannah was single, and I hadn't heard her talk about anyone special in her life recently. When I asked her about the father, she brushed it off, saying she wasn't ready to share that information. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't want to push it. I figured she'd open up when she was ready. Over the next few weeks, I tried to be there for her. I offered to take her to appointments, asked her if she needed help, and kept inviting her to spend time with me. But she remained distant and cagey about the pregnancy. Then one day, during one of the rare times she visited me at home, I couldn't hold back my curiosity anymore. We were sitting together, and I gently asked her again if she felt comfortable telling me who the father was. She hesitated, and then finally admitted that the father was someone close to her. I was puzzled and didn't understand what she meant. She looked away, visibly uncomfortable, and muttered something about how it was complicated. I could feel a pit forming in my stomach, but I tried to stay calm. I pressed her, saying that if she trusted me, she could tell me. After all, I was her sister. That's when she started to cry, saying she never meant for things to turn out this way, and that she was sorry for hurting me. The pieces started coming together in my head, but I was in denial. I could barely even consider what my instincts were telling me. My heart was racing, and I felt nauseous as I finally asked her, "Is the father Daniel?" She couldn't look at me. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake." I felt like my whole world had just shattered. I sat there, frozen, unable to process what I'd just heard. My sister, my best friend, had been sleeping with my husband, and now she was carrying his child. I couldn't speak, couldn't even look at her. She tried to explain, saying that it had been one time and that they didn't mean for this to happen. But nothing she could say would make up for the pain I was feeling. I couldn't face Daniel that night. I left and went to stay with a friend, trying to wrap my head around what I'd just learned. The next day, I confronted Daniel, asking him if it was true. At first, he denied it, but when he saw that I already knew, he broke down and admitted everything. He begged me to forgive him, saying it was a stupid mistake and that he regretted it deeply. He promised that he'd end things with Hannah and do whatever it took to make things right. But how could he possibly make this right? I was pregnant with his child while he'd been sleeping with my sister behind my back. I was dreaming about my child growing up in a full family where mom and dad are together. My heart was breaking thinking about divorce. I grew up in a family of divorced parents and didn't wish that on my child. But I also knew I won't be able to forgive Daniel, and the only solution was divorce. Over the following months, I struggled and felt lost. My in-laws knew something was wrong, as I was staying with friends and avoiding family events, so they eventually reached out, asking me if I was okay. I felt guilty involving them, but I couldn't keep lying and pretending everything was fine. So, I told them the truth. I told them about Daniel's betrayal, about Hannah's pregnancy, and about how broken I felt. My in-laws were devastated. My mother-in-law cried, saying she couldn't believe her son could do something so hurtful. My father-in-law was furious, and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. But they assured me that they would support me and my child no matter what. They told me they still viewed me as part of the family and that they'd make sure my baby would be well taken care of. Their kindness and support were one of the only things that helped me stay strong. After my son was born, my in-laws made the decision to update their will, ensuring that their estate would go entirely to my son. They didn't tell Daniel or Hannah about the change, and I didn't mention it either. I just appreciated the fact that my in-laws were taking steps to secure my son's future. They knew the betrayal I'd endured, and I think they wanted to make it clear that they didn't approve of what Daniel and Hannah had done. Their decision was their own, and I didn't ask them to change their will, but I was grateful for their support. Then, a few weeks later, Daniel and Hannah found out about the updated will. I'm not entirely sure how, but I suspect one of my in-laws might have mentioned it in passing. When they learned that my son was set to inherit the entire estate, they were furious. Daniel confronted me, accusing me of turning his family against him and manipulating them into changing the inheritance. He demanded that I fix this and talk to his parents, insisting that both of his children deserved an equal share of the inheritance. I was taken aback by his entitlement. I reminded him that his parents had made this decision on their own, and that he had no right to make demands after what he'd done. I told him that actions have consequences, and that perhaps he should have thought about that before he betrayed me with my own sister. He argued that he was being punished, and that it was unfair to exclude his other child. But I wasn't about to fight for an inheritance for the child of an affair that had destroyed my marriage. Hannah, meanwhile, was also livid. She called me, saying that I was vindictive and spiteful for letting my in-laws change their will in favor of my son. She claimed that I was punishing her baby, who was innocent in all of this, and that it was unfair to treat her child differently. She argued that both children should be treated equally, and that I was tearing our family apart by not pushing for them to share the inheritance. I couldn't believe her audacity. After everything she'd done, the lies, the betrayal, the pain she'd caused, she actually had the nerve to demand that I go out of my way to make sure her child was taken care of. I told her that she and Daniel had made their choices and that they needed to accept the consequences. I wasn't going to advocate for her child to receive a part of my in-laws' estate after the devastation they'd both caused. Some family members think I'm justified in my actions and that Daniel and Hannah have no right to demand anything after what they did. Others believe I'm being too harsh, saying that children shouldn't suffer for their parents' mistakes. They argue that I should encourage my in-laws to treat both children equally for the sake of family unity. But to me, the betrayal runs too deep, and I can't bring myself to fight for anything on behalf of my sister or my husband. Right now, I'm focusing on my son and trying to rebuild my life. But part of me still wonders if I'm being vindictive by letting my in-laws exclude Hannah's child. I didn't ask them to make this decision, but I also didn't discourage them, and I'm questioning if I should have. Maybe they're right, and children shouldn't have to suffer for their parents' mistakes. But at the same time, I feel like my loyalty has to be to my own child, who I'm raising alone because of the choices his father and aunt made. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for not fighting for my husband and sister's baby to be included in my in-laws' inheritance? OP's husband and sister betrayed OP in the worst possible way. The fact that OP's in-laws are prioritizing OP's child shows they recognize how awful this is and want to make things right. OP is not punishing anyone. OP is protecting her child and herself. Yes, the child is innocent and didn't choose to be born from an affair, But it's the in-laws' decision, and OP should not get involved in that. OP needs to stand her ground and not let them guilt her into anything. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. Your husband and sister made their choices, and now they're facing the consequences. You're not obligated to help them, and the in-laws' will is their decision alone. You're doing the best you can to protect yourself and your child, and you shouldn't feel guilty for that. Not the a-hole. This is a terrible betrayal, and I'm so sorry you're going through this. You're right to cut them out and focus on your child. Don't let them push you into giving up your child's inheritance. Your in-laws see the situation for what it is, and they're making sure your child is protected. That's all you need to worry about. Your husband and sister are unbelievable. They betrayed you, and now they're demanding you prioritize them and their baby? The entitlement is unreal. You're not the a-hole, and you're right to stand up for yourself. Your in-laws clearly see how awful this situation is. You don't owe them anything. Wife was told she was going to inherit the house her parents are living in. When her parents started needing care, we moved in with them to help out and paid rent to help with bills. We were explicitly told the house was hers when they passed, or when they decided to leave. Wife and I spent several thousands over the last 10 years getting new appliances, new floors, fence, siding, and things of that nature, because we were told she would inherit it, and we believed this was our home. We find out today that the parents are moving and they want us to either buy the house. They changed their mind on inheriting it because they need the money to move, at full value, or they will put it on the market. Wife says she won't pay for her inheritance and asks to negotiate something. Promptly told no. We demand repayment for the updates we made to the house because we never would have done them if we weren't told the house would be ours. Wouldn't have put in a new fence. Last one was leaning so bad you could literally walk over it. New flooring. Tiles were missing, broken. Floorboards were rotting. New appliances. Fridge leaked and was rusted. Dishwasher needed semi-monthly repairs, and clothes washer didn't operate. They would get far less for the house being sold if not for the work we did to it. They are saying they don't have to pay us a penny. Do we have any legal options here? Have them sell it on the market and ask for your $20,000 back that you spent in repairs. Show them the receipts or credit card payments. Tell them you don't want to bring lawyers into it, but you will if you have to. Tell them that you just want what is fair, nothing else. Surely, if you have messages that say they were giving you the home, and you can prove you completed work on the home after this message was sent, you can sue them for misrepresentation and costs made to yourself. I, 52 male, have 3 children with my ex, Tracy, 50 female, Michael, 28 male, Linda, 25 female, and Victoria, 23 female. We split because Tracy had an affair with Stan, 55 male, to whom she is now married. We never shared with the kids the reason for the divorce, as I didn't want them to blame either of us. This backfired, as the kids saw their mom move out of the house into a small apartment, and me keep living in the house and remarry 2 years after the divorce. So they saw me as the bad guy. Stan and Tracy pretty much let them do whatever they wanted, and I had to be the disciplinarian who made sure homework was done, appointments were made, and deadlines were met. My 2 oldest eventually came to realize that I was not the bad guy. My son, when he found out his mother had put nothing away for college for him as outlined in our divorce decree, and she told him to take out loans. My daughter, when she realized that her grades were going to keep her out of her desired program in school. My youngest never came around, so it was a surprise when her boyfriend asked for my blessing to ask for her hand. When I expressed that I didn't think she cared about my blessing, he said she insisted on it. She began spending time with me, being polite to my wife, and it felt wonderful to have my daughter back. I went with them to book the venue, and they'll be getting married next summer. I paid the deposit and the first installment. I noticed that she was becoming less communicative again recently, ignoring my texts or giving one-word replies, and not coming over as much. On Monday, my son sent me a post from Instagram. My youngest had an engagement party this weekend to which I was not invited. One of the photos was her with Stan, and it read, "Anyone can be a father. It takes a real man to be a dad. This amazing guy has been my dad for 15 years, even though he didn't have to be. I am so blessed to have him walk me down the aisle next year. Hashtag daddy's girl, hashtag future Mrs. X." My kids wanted nothing their entire lives because I never let them go without. Even when they wouldn't talk to me, I made sure their needs were met. I texted Tracy to ask why I was not included. She replied that Victoria didn't want my wife there because she wanted a drama-free day. My wife has literally never started drama in her life. I asked if Stan and I would both be walking her down the aisle. Tracy didn't respond, but Victoria called me up demanding to know what my problem was. I repeated my question, and she replied that no, Stan, her dad, would be walking her down the aisle. I told her if that's what she wanted, I would be fine with it. I told her to let Stan know the next payment for the wedding is due in November. Stan and Tracy do not have the money for this wedding and think I'm being an a-hole. Linda says if I do this, Victoria will never speak to me again. Michael is on my side. Not the a-hole. If you aren't her dad in her eyes, then why would you pay for the wedding? And here's a novel idea. The bride and groom can pay for the wedding instead of the parents. Not the a-hole. Can OP cancel the venue and get refund? If yes, please do. Oh man, he should totally do this. His daughter tried to dupe him. He should get his money back. Also, I think he's got nothing to lose really. It's not going to shut the door on the relationship because his daughter shut that door herself a long time ago. Not the a-hole. Not only dupe, she threw it in his face that she doesn't consider him her father. I would not reward that with paying for her wedding. I would also consider telling the children, who are now adults, the real reason your first marriage ended. People need to be held accountable for their actions, especially your daughter and ex-wife. Not the a-hole. Maybe it's time you told your kids the real reason behind the divorce. My boyfriend has 3 kids, 12 female, 7 female, 5 female. A wildfire broke out by their house, and the neighborhood had to evacuate. So I told my boyfriend to bring his kids to my apartment. I've known his kids for months, and they're all great kids, but they're a bit spoiled. My boyfriend's oldest daughter has health issues, and they were at the hospital getting her treatments when the fire broke out. The younger 2 were at home with their nanny when the fire broke out. So the nanny took the kids straight to my place, and my boyfriend joined us an hour or so later. My boyfriend came in carrying his oldest because she was asleep, and he didn't want to wake her up. He asked where he could put her down, so I showed him the room that I had planned on all the kids and the nanny sharing. Nanny is a live-in nanny, and I guess she didn't have anywhere else to go. Room has 2 bunk beds, so everyone has their own bed. He said he didn't want her to be in the same room as her siblings because she was going to need a lot of rest, and he doesn't want them to bother her. I asked where I was supposed to put her, and he suggested my room. I asked if he meant only for a few hours, and he said no, the whole night. I asked where were we supposed to sleep, and he said we could sleep on the pull-out couch. I said I wasn't going to give up my room so his 12-year-old could have her own room, and he left with the kids and nanny. Now he's saying he needs to rethink this relationship because I wouldn't sleep on my couch for one night to let his daughter rest without her siblings waking her up and bothering her. Not the a-hole. Parenting is a tough topic to broach. Personally, I think a lot of parents coddle their children beyond belief. That said, it's their choice. This sounds like it may just be a compatibility issue. Personally, I'd side with you, but I know a lot of parents that would be in his camp of doing anything for the children, for even the smallest of things. So, you graciously opened your home to 5 extra people at a moment's notice, providing a bed to everyone, but if you didn't give up yours, it wasn't enough? I realized the oldest was sick, but the other children did not have to be in the bedroom if they were not sleeping, and there was a nanny there to ensure they all kept away from the older child. To me, it looks like a glimpse into your future, where you will be expected to sacrifice anything he feels his children should be entitled to, regardless whether it's your private property or not. Just my honest opinion, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Why couldn't the daughter sleep on the pull-out bed? My husband and I, 28 male, 28 female, got married recently, and my sister, 31 female, and I were discussing the wedding after returning from the honeymoon. We were very fortunate to have grown up in a household where my parents made very good money. They were generous with us, but raised my sister and I to be hardworking and not dependent on them as adults. My sister and I both do well financially, as does her husband, 36 male. My husband loves his job, but it is not one that has a ton of earning potential. He and I met in college, so I've always known this was his plan, and we are very happy with our setup. During my discussion with my sister, she asked me if my husband and I were planning to use the wedding gift money from my parents to do a particular renovation, for which we've been saving. But I was very confused because the gift, while extremely generous and appreciated, wasn't nearly enough to cover that. She told me how much she had been gifted, and it was more than twice what I had been given. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about why I had gotten less. So my sister encouraged me to ask, and during a call with my mom, I couldn't stop myself from asking. Her response was that it wasn't my business, but since I did ask, my sister has chosen a partner that can accommodate the lifestyle she's used to, so they've gifted her accordingly. They also gifted me according to the lifestyle I've chosen. We are not entitled to gifts of any size in life, but I still can't help feeling hurt that my parents feel that my husband and I are less deserving than my sister and her husband based on income. Meanwhile, my parents are angry at both my sister and me for having this discussion and bringing it to them. Not the a-hole. There's a lot of reasons that would have made sense and been okay, including a simple, we're not in the same financial situation we were in when we gave your sister her wedding gift. But to make it about how much you guys make is basically a passive-aggressive way of saying you got less because you picked a partner we feel is beneath you. Not the a-hole, and I don't understand your parents' reasoning. Seems like they just want to punish you for choosing a spouse that makes less money than they would have preferred. Honestly, if your sister's husband is so well off, why would she need additional money as a gift? Not the a-hole, but that's a weird way of gifting money. Your sister and husband make more, so they get more money, and you get less because you make less. Does not compute. I am 32 female, and he is 32 male, married for 3 years. I make the majority of our household income and pay the lion's share of our bills. He has a set amount we have agreed on to pay bi-weekly, in line with his payday to contribute. We keep our finances completely separate except for this. Before moving here, he had never had a credit card, and his parents were in serious debt. I told him to be very careful with his card, but that it was a good idea to have one to build credit for himself, of which he previously had none. Over the years, he has abused that card horribly, even increasing his credit limit against my advice. I also had parents who were massively in credit card debt and know how that felt, so I've never allowed myself to be, and I like to think I manage my finances very well. Several months back, of his own volition, my husband came to me distraught and seeking advice because he had overdrawn his $7,500 credit card. He told me to take his card from him and that he was going to remove it from online accounts to prevent usage until he could pay it back down again. I agreed and hid the card. Fast forward to today. Every once in a while, I've checked in with him to ask how he's doing paying down his card, and he tells me he's doing well. I've been happy for him. Today, I found a credit card statement left open on his desk, and my curiosity took hold. He is still almost maxed out on this card. As of last month, he paid out more than he put in. His list of charges include a gift card for his PlayStation and several charges to restaurant takeout and food delivery apps. He has clearly not removed his card from any of these, and has even made attempts to hide his food purchases from me when I've come home from work. He spent over $200 on fast food last month alone, and this is the only month I've snooped on. On one hand, with our finances separate, I feel like I have no business interfering in them like this, but it is affecting our lives too. He is unable to pay for basic necessities like paper towels, body wash, and groceries sometimes, and I foot most of it instead. We need thousands of dollars in repairs to the house, and he has already told me he won't be in any position to contribute, so that will also entirely fall on me. This doesn't seem fair, and I only found this out by snooping. Am I wrong to be infuriated? How do I approach this when we've already talked about his spending issues multiple times? Your finances are not separate, even if his money is going to his own expenses, because his financial mess is affecting the relationship. He has a spending habit and needs therapy to sort this out. I doubt you can say anything to him to stop his spending because at this point, it's almost an addiction. He's been abusing the credit cards for years. You've only been married for 3. So does that mean he's been doing this since you've been together? Lady, this is above your pay grade. It's time for an ultimatum. Your spending addiction has affected our finances and has potentially jeopardized our future. You need to seek therapy for your spending. I will no longer be footing your bills. I need 100% transparency, or this marriage is over. I, 27 female, have been a nanny for the same family for about 6 months now. It's a 1-year-old baby girl, and she is the sweetest baby ever. I thought the family was really nice and that we had a good working relationship until yesterday. I always take the baby on walks, either around the neighborhood or we walk down to this cool shopping center where they have a little fountain and a bubble tea shop we like to hang out at. There's toys and games, and she always has fun there. We walked down to the bubble tea shop yesterday, and we're playing as usual. We're usually out for like an hour, when it started raining. It drizzled a bit, so we went inside the shop to wait it out before walking back, and then it started pouring, like storming. It was awful. It rained for so long. I texted the mom saying, "Hey, it's raining really bad, so we're just going to wait it out, but we're at the bubble tea shop." She told me it was almost the baby's nap time and that I needed to head home now like usual. I asked her if she had looked out the window to see how bad it was raining, and she said yes. Baby has a cover for their stroller and will be fine. Please head back. I told her baby has a cover, but I don't have an umbrella or jacket, and I'll get soaked, and will have to finish out my shift soaking wet. I asked if she or her husband could just come pick us up, and she said it's my job to do what she says. I told her I was not walking back in the rain. After an hour, yes, it kept raining. Her husband came and picked us up, apologizing, saying he was sleeping and didn't know we were out here in the rain. When we got back, Mom screamed at me saying how dare I not bring her baby home when she told me to, and accused me of kidnapping. Dad said she was being dramatic, but didn't really do much. She threatened to fire me and told me not to come in today and that we will discuss everything Monday. Was I wrong for not coming back? It was pouring. I didn't want to have to sit in soaked clothes for hours. My hair would get ruined. I didn't want to get sick. There's so many reasons I didn't want to be in the pouring rain. Plus, it didn't feel that safe. I guess if I'm wrong, I'll apologize Monday, but my boyfriend says she's being unreasonable and can't fire me for that. I feel like I should quit. I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I bet she'd have complained if you or the baby got sick from being out in the cold and rain. You made the smart decision. Not the a-hole, but I wouldn't want to keep working for her after that. Threatening and accusing you of kidnapping could have serious consequences. It's scary how easily she went there.